brings us to rivalry rankings. Cedric, as we talk about this rivalry, I think it's always fun to sort of take a step back and say, you know, where does the Red River Rivalry fit in the lexicon of great college football rivalries in this country? People want to talk about Bama, Auburn. They want to talk about Michigan, Ohio State. They want to talk about Florida, Georgia. All of these traditional rivals. I think even some people now, with the frequency that we've seen Alabama and Clemson play in the playoff, have started to push them forward. What tops your list when it comes to rivalries out there in college football?
I'm biased. I don't have a problem saying it. I'm biased. I grew up on Texas and Oklahoma. Texas and Texas A&M is a great rivalry, but they're not playing anymore. But I go Texas, Oklahoma, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, Auburn in that order. I think those are the three biggest rivalries. And when you look at what the Longhorns and Sooners do every year, Jen, I think it's kind of the coolest atmosphere in college football for a regular season game. Yeah. They're playing at this Texas State Fair, and you see those cameras zooming in overhead and those cable cars rolling through on those big wires. And subconsciously, we're wondering, one of these days, we know one of them's going to fall, and I hope there's no people in it when it happens. That kind of thing. Big Tex burning to the ground. Yeah. You can't beat Big Tex burning to the ground, Jen. I mean, it is an iconic rivalry with color, with prestige, with pageantry, and the one thing you need, Jen, that makes a rivalry go, good old-fashioned hatred on both sides. Tom Herman talked about an 80-year-old woman flipping him the double bird when he was a grad assistant in the late 90s, and people throwing Dr. Peppers at the Texas bus. I love it. I love it. Just don't get my suit dirty. Do what you will to that bus. It's paid for, but I don't have a wardrobe budget, so don't throw anything at me. But I love just the genuine animus that is involved in this rivalry. I know Alabama, Auburn, there's really, really bad hatred there because that state's about as big as the room that I'm in. So there's not a lot of room to move around. Yeah. But this is a border war. It's a rivalry, and it's got all the little pieces that make a real bloodthirsty, blood feud rivalry special. And I just love it. It's my favorite game to cover of the year. And I've covered championship games, Jen. This is at the top of the list.
Yeah, I think as it relates to the scene that we get to see every year at the Cotton Bowl, there's really, I know Florida, Georgia, they have the world's largest cocktail party, all that stuff, neutral site, but I don't think you quite have the level of pageantry history that you do with Oklahoma and Texas playing at the Cotton Bowl, State Fair, fair going on, all the people on the grounds, all the sights and sounds that people are so accustomed to. And then I think you always, in my mind, rivalries, they change in my mind as the teams improve and as the impact of the game changes. I think that there were a few years where when Texas was down, even you still had the pageantry of the game, but you didn't have the impact of the game because you just didn't have those wars. I think in that regard, I think you maybe saw OU Texas slip a little bit. But if you look over the last 20 years or even a little more, there's very few years where you have the teams that aren't, neither of them are in the mix for playoff spots or BCS or whatever era you want to talk about. And I think that is important. And, I think that's maybe where Alabama, Auburn, maybe they've taken a little bit of a slip, where you've seen Michigan, Ohio State, everybody thinks, Michigan's going to be better, whatever. It just we haven't seen Michigan sort of, yet push up to that level that I think everybody thought they'd get to with Jim Harbaugh. So that still lacks a little bit in my mind. Great games, no doubt, but when you tile all those things up, I think it now takes Oklahoma, Texas back up to that top spot in my mind. But I tell you, games like Army-Navy, Cedric, when you talk about those traditional rivalries, if Army-Navy had more as in terms of national rankings and those sorts of things on the line, it'd be hard to argue with that. Neutral site, the cadets, all of the again, pageantry of that game, but you just don't have the overall impact, must-see TV part of that to me. I wish it were different, because to me the symbolism of that game is just off the charts wonderful. But I mean, the impact of OU Texas when both these teams are in the rankings, in the running for Big 12 championships, potentially postseason spots, it's hard to argue what you said with the pageantry, with the impact of who wins this game and what it means. I mean, that takes it to a whole other level in my mind.
And you know what, Jen, the one thing that sometimes we don't talk about is whoever loses this game's got to live with it. And they've got to try to pull it together, because both teams are good in most seasons. So the loser has to live with it, and they have to kind of pull it all together, because there's a lot of football left to be played. Meanwhile, the winner is going to ascend to the top of the Big 12, be the team to beat in the Big 12, and know going into the rest of its schedule that they don't have to play Texas again, or they don't have to play Oklahoma again until the Big 12 championship game. And we all expect to be meeting at Jerry World in a couple of months, don't we, Jen?
Yeah, no, I mean, to me, that's a whole other aspect of this rivalry that now with Texas reemergence, I think that's going to be a whole other thing, the second OU Texas game of the season. And, I don't know about you, Cedric, but, one of the things that we talked about when they went to Jerry World, I think there's some people that would say the Cotton Bowl's getting old. They need to find a new home.
Getting old.
It's old. It's old. But you know what? The Jerry World, for all of its wonderful bells and whistles and all the great things about it, it doesn't have as many seats as the Cotton Bowl, Cedric. And I think people at that Big 12 championship game saw that a year ago. There were a lot of people that wanted to be there and couldn't, because it just doesn't have the capacity. A lot of people that might say otherwise, you can recreate the tradition, you can do it at Jerry World. I get that, but it doesn't have enough seats. Cedric, to me, that says I think OU Texas, when you and that pageantry aspect of it, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon, because nowhere in Dallas has that kind of capacity.
You can't move the state fair to Arlington.
That's true.
I love Six Flags, but it's not the state fair.
No.
I think that the Cotton Bowl, for all of its faults, the creaky pipes, the bathrooms that don't work by the third quarter, and the prison barbecue they service in the media tent, I still take it all day long over Jerry World as far as pageantry is concerned. It's where that game's supposed to be. It's where that game's always been played. They'll continue to prop up the Cotton Bowl. They'll throw more money at it. It's never going to be a great facility, but it's where this game needs to be played. I know Jerry Jones wants to get that game at Jerry World every year. Of course he does, but it's not going to be the same. I think it's where it's supposed to be. I love AT&T Stadium, but I love it. I love it when the Cowboys are playing in it. The Big 12 championship game, that's fine. I'm not bad about that. Jerry could bring in some more bleachers. There's capacity to add bleachers to that stadium and improve, maybe get rid of one of those concourses and add a couple of thousand seats. But that's a good place for it, for the Big 12 championship game. It's more TV friendly. It's a nicer stadium, but let's keep the Red River Rivalry, unless you want to go home and home, and that's a whole nother conversation, Jen.
Yeah.
Let's keep it where it's been.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Yep, it's part of the rivalry. It's part of the thing that pushes it to the top of a lot of rankings when it comes to rivalries, pushes it to the top of rankings for us. Hey, this rivalry is so fun. In fact, Cedric, we've got something special queued up for folks online, already rolling out there, the Red River Rivalry Radio. And you were a part of that, right?
Yes, I was. Over the summer, Jen, me, Brian Davis, and Kirk Bowles, my three tours. Well, let me start over. In 3, 2. Yes, I was, Jen. Over the summer, Kirk Bowles, Brian Davis, and myself, we collaborated with some of your guys,
Yep.
Barry Trammell, the legend himself, Joe Masato, Ryan Aber.
Yep.
We all got together on audio and had some nostalgic, conversations about this rivalry, our favorite games, the coaches, etc. And so the respective websites of the papers of the Oklahoman and the Statesman have gotten together, and the website's called Red River Rivalry Radio. And what that has on it is all of those conversations playing on a loop, and it's a few hours of conversations about our experiences covering the games, the great players, the great coaches, Barry Switzer, Bill Wilkinson. Kirk Bowles remembers when Jesus was coaching. So it goes all the way back to the Ten Commandments, Jen.
Wow.
It is absolutely great. And it's sponsored by Zaxby's. And it's been getting a lot of airplay on the website. And just go to Red River Rivalry Radio. You will find it. It's great because if you're a fan of this game and the conversation we just had today, then you're going to love the stuff that's on there. Check it out. It's getting a lot of airplay already. It's Red River Rivalry Radio.com.
Yep, and it's going to have some new and live stuff as the week goes on and as we start to converge on Dallas and the game. So people that maybe have listened to a little bit, check back in later in the week. You may find some new content on there from reporters, columnists as they start hitting the sights and sounds of Dallas as fans get down there too. So you want to definitely check that out. Red River Rivalry Radio on the Statesman's website, on the Oklahoman's website. Be sure to check that out.